everyone, this is Noelle for Petitti's, and we're here on a gorgeous May day, and we're going to plant a vegetable container for you, and it's really simple. What you want to do is you want to pick a container that's going to be easy for you to use and plant. This is just a darker plastic container, and the reason I usually choose darker colors is because the soil will heat up faster in a darker container, and that's usually good for your peppers, your tomatoes. If you want to get them started a little bit earlier, great to have a darker container to heat up that soil for them. The other thing that you need to remember is you want to make sure you have drainage holes in the bottom. So drainage holes are really key, especially when you're planting outdoors in a container garden. You want to make sure that that water is freely draining out of the bottom of the pot, not of course rotting the root system. So that's a good thing too. When we plant container gardens, we don't tend to fill the entire area with soil. It's a lot of soil you'll be using, so we tend to take up the bottom space with some other types of material. Sometimes we use gravel, sometimes styrofoam peanuts if you have them. I tend to use pots, so the plants that I'm using and I'm planting in this container, I'm just going to take them out of the pots and actually tip the pots upside down and put them right at the bottom, and that gives you that air space down at the bottom, and then I'll fill with soil. So I probably should tell you about our edible container that we're planting today. This is a basil called PESTO PERPETUO. Sorry, a lot of P's there. And this basil is a Greek columnar basil. It grows upright. It's got variegated foliage. And the big key here is it's got that great basil aroma and taste, but it doesn't flower. So you never have to pinch it back, deadhead, remove those flowers. It just keeps on producing. So the more you cut, the more you get on this plant. The other one that I have here that you wouldn't normally think about for edible containers is the marigolds. Marigolds are a great companion plant for any of your edibles. What marigolds do is they can repel rodents, they can repel deer as well from the smell, but they can also attract whitefly, aphids away from your edible plants. So planting a marigold along in the container with everything else works out very well. I always suggest using marigolds that you can see the pollen centers on them. They're going to be more fragrant, they're going to be better at attracting and also repelling that way too. And of course you can always give them a little smell and make sure that you can smell that fragrance. So I'm going to pull that marigold out of the pot. This one's called Durango Flame. Put that pot upside down in the bottom. Now I've also chosen some flat leaf Italian parsley. This parsley is getting a little overgrown. We're definitely going to have to clip it and use it. Again, trying to remove some of the older stems, letting these new younger stems fill out. The more tender parts of the plant are always going to be the youngest parts, but if you get some that are a little bit more overgrown, definitely do cut those, remove those stems as low as you can grow, and it'll fill in some more for you. So I'm going to pop the parsley out as well. And whoops, I meant to take that pot and throw it upside down in the bottom. Okay, now the last tomato, of course, is what we're going to plant here today. And your tomato planters, you kind of think, gosh, Noelle, it's not a lot of plant material for that big pot you have. But tomatoes like their root space, so you want at least 10 inches of depth on your container and about 10 to 12 inches width or more for your tomato to grow well. Okay, so they do take up a lot of space. They like all of that soil space. They like all the moisture that that soil can provide them too in a bigger pot. So that's a good thing. The tomato we selected today is called Husky Red. Husky Red is actually a medium-sized slicer. It's kind of small to medium, but if you look at this stem, it's really thick, really strong and sturdy, and that's what we want in especially a container garden tomato, so we don't have to worry about flopping over, growing too big in that container, and eventually a wind comes through and knocks everything over. So your Husky Red, your patio tomatoes, so there is a tomato called patio that works very well. Any of those bush type tomatoes, early girl bush, is also a great selection for growing a container garden. Okay, so all we're going to do again is gently wiggle that tomato out. And I'm going to throw that last pot down in the bottom and set the tomato back down here. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to put some planting mix in, Petitti planting mix. This is a great multi-purpose soil. You can use it out in your soil beds, garden beds. You can also use it in container gardens. It does have a compost in it, so it's going to stay moister a little bit longer. And sometimes that's very helpful when you are planting container gardens and you're not able to water as often. You can use the planting mix for outdoor containers, no problem. So we're going to pour that in. Okay, so we've got the soil in. The next thing that I'm going to do is actually mix in the fertilizer. So when we're planting edibles, we like to use organic fertilizers. Tomato tone is fantastic for, obviously, tomatoes. You can use this formulation on any of your edible plants. It'll do a nice job for you. For tomato tone, the directions state 1.5 teaspoons per 4 inches of diameter of the pot. So this is a 16-inch diameter pot. We're going to do 4 times 1.5, so quick math, it's going to be 6 teaspoons. So now we're into tablespoons now, about 2 tablespoons or so. Am I right? Anyway, so needless to say, we're going to shake some in, and I'm just going to kind of guesstimate, okay? What's good about organic fertilizers is you don't have to worry about overfeeding. You don't have to worry about burning your plant material. Just mix them into the soil, incorporate that into the top couple inches of soil, and you're ready to go. So that's great too. Now, I'm going to take the tomato, and because it is basically the centerpiece, I'm going to stick it right in the center. Before I do that, I am going to pinch these lower leaves off, okay? Because a tomato will take root and grow very, very well if you remove that lower growth. I'm going to take that one off too, and go ahead and let the top growth really fill out. The other thing is, don't forget to tickle your root system or break up that root system so the roots start moving into the soil more quickly. So we're going to do that first. Okay, tomatoes in the center, filling in around it. Okay, and the next thing I'm going to do, since I have 3 other plants that are edible, the marigolds, by the way, you can use in salads and things. The flower petals are just a nice colorful mix that you can throw into salads if you like. I'm just going to make a triangle around them, okay, around the tomato plant. So I'm going to take my parsley, going to head and break up that root system, make a little bit of a hole, fill in around it, keep those leaves up. We'll clip those real soon here. Okay, tomatoes still up in the center. Take that marigold, again, pretty extensive root system. Break up the roots as best you can. Go ahead and plant, fill in around it. Okay, and basil, PESTO PERPETUO, okay? And that's gonna go over here on the other corner of the triangle. All right. Okay, everything's filled in a little bit. We do need to add a little bit more soil, but before I do that, I think what I'm going to do is show you that even with this other plant material, it's always good to go ahead and cage it. If you don't have a bush tomato, you have something that's more vining, like a cherry tomato or what have you, that's going to grow a little bit taller, it's always good to have the cage around that tomato, especially when it's young and you can fit it over it. So that's the next thing that we're going to do. And the cage will also help if you do have some deer in the area that like to eat your tomatoes. You can go ahead and put that cage down very snugly into the pot. You can feel the feet all the way at the bottom, and that tomato will grow up and through it. And then if you have deer, you can actually take netting and put it over the top of the cage, clothespin it on, you can zip tie it on, and just let the plants grow up and through, and they will be protected as well. So my last part of this is just filling in with a little bit of soil, watering, and you're ready to go. Enjoy.